to tell you.
All right, yeah. So God has
Hey,
brought them out.
Pastor. Hey,
Huh?
Pastor.
Yes, ma'am.
My mom and I were thinking you were talking about the feast the last time we met.
Talking about what?
The
Yeah,
feast.
here. I'm talking about like last Sunday, this past Sunday.
Oh, you're talking about the Sunday one. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha,
yeah.
gotcha.
Because last time here on Wednesday night we did talk about the feast of Israel, or the feast that God gave to the children of Israel. Tonight, and I want to think about, we often talk about the children of Israel wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, and I think we take it for granted that we've all heard the story of why, right? Because I know I have that problem because my mother would tell you I attended church for the first time when I was 11 days old and didn't miss a Sunday for like 9 years after that. So I was brought up in the church and I've heard all of these stories multiple times. But many people are not brought up in the church, and so many people have not heard the stories and don't understand why certain things or how certain things tie together or why certain things happen. So I want to talk about why the children of Israel were required to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. And to do that, we need to set the background. God has brought them out of the land of Egypt, and they brought them to Mount Sinai, where God gave them the law and established the Mosaic covenant. And this is how I'm going to deal with you. This is God saying, this is how I'm going to deal with you. I'm going to deal with you based on the law, right? If you want to please me, you'll obey the law, and so on and so forth. But the ultimate purpose of the law was to show them that God was ultimately going to deal with them through grace, right? It's through faith. That's what the law's purpose was. We have talked about that before. But the children of Israel promptly began failing a series of tests, right? They complain. So God gives them, they complain there's no water. Why did you bring us out in the desert to die of thirst? We should have stayed in Egypt. And God brings water from different sources. God gives them food when they complain that they should have stayed in Egypt because they had all the food that they could eat, even though that was untrue. They were slaves in Egypt, but God graciously provides them manna and quail. And so God has met all of their needs, and they continually fail in their relationship with God. And that's what we talked about this past Sunday. Why did Moses have to make a bronze snake and put it up on a pole? Because the children of Israel had complained against God, right? They complained and grumbled against God once again. So God sent fiery serpents, and that's what we talked about Sunday. So when you read the story, you see that the nation of Israel continually fails in these tests that God puts them through, which is part of the design of the Exodus, to show the people their inability to please God, their inability to follow God, their inability to make themselves clean before God, right? That's part of what's going on. But now we come to the time where the children of Israel are brought to the edge of the promised land, and it's time for them to go in and occupy the promised land. Remember, that was the promise that God had gave them through Moses, right? I'm going to bring you out of Egypt, and I'm going to bring you into a land. I'm going to bring you into your own land. I'm going to bring you into the promised land, right? This is the purpose of the whole journey. So we're on the cusp of an attempt to go into the promised land by the nation of Israel, the ones who actually came out of Egypt. So uh, chapter 12, we have the mini rebellion of Miriam and Aaron against Moses. They're jealous, but God takes care of that. But then in chapter 13, the Lord spoke to Moses in verse 1, saying, "Send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the people of Israel. From each tribe of their fathers you shall send a man, every one a chief among them." So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran, according to the command of the Lord, all of them men who were heads of the people of Israel. And these were their names: from the tribe of Reuben, Shammua; from the son of Zakur; from the tribe of Simeon, Shaphat, the son of Hori; from the tribe of Judah, Caleb, the son of Jehuneth; from the tribe of Issachar, Egal, the son of Joseph; from the tribe of Ephraim, Hosea, or Joshua, Hosea, the son of Nun; from the tribe of Benjamin, Palti, the son of Raphu; from the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel, the son of Sodi; and from the tribe of Joseph, that is, from the tribe of Manasseh. Remember, Manasseh was one of Joseph's sons. Gadi, the son of Susi; from the tribe of Dan, Amiel, the son of Gemali, From the tribe of Asher, Sethur, the son of Michael. From the tribe of Naphtali, Nahbi, the son of Vapshi. From the tribe of Gad, Guel, son of Malchi. These were the names of the men with whom Moses sent out to spy out the land. And Moses called Hosea, the son of Nun, Joshua or Yeshua. So I'm glad those names are over. I always dread reading those Hebrew names in public. So I'm sure I butchered them, but if anybody want to read them out loud and do better than me, feel free. All right. So God says to Moses, I want you to pick one man from each tribe. One man who is among the leaders of that tribe, right? One man who is among the patriarchal family that runs that tribe. You pick one of the princes of that tribe, of the rulers of that tribe, and you're going to go send them to spy out the land. Right? This is another test. God knew what was in the land, right? God knew exactly what was in the land. God has already told them, I'm giving you that land. So we know right up front, this is another test that God is giving them. Are they going to trust God, or are they not going to trust God? God has said, I'm giving you the land. Now you go in there and you spy out the land. You look at the land. Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan and said to them, go up into the Negeb and go up into the hill country and see what the land is, and whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak, whether they are few or many, and whether the land that they dwell in is good or bad, and whether the cities that they dwell in are camps or strongholds, and whether the land is rich or poor, and whether there are trees in it or not. Be of good courage and bring some of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the season of the first ripe grapes. When's the first ripe grapes, Terry? When's the grapes start ripening up? You're muted. I know Conqueror's about June. I think it depends on the grape type, doesn't it?
Yeah, Muscadine's 15 September.
Yeah. Concord grapes are June-ish. I don't know about the others, so I'm sure I could look up in a commentary see when that is, but it's when the first grapes are being ripened. Verse 21, so they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Sin to Rehob, near Lebo-Hamath, and they went up into the Negeb and came to Hebron. Haman, Sheshai, and Talmi, the descendants of Anak, were there. Hebron was built 7 years before Zon in Egypt. And they came to the valley of Eshcol, and cut down from there a branch with a single cluster of grapes, and they carried it on a pole between two of them. They also brought some pomegranates and figs. That place was called the Valley of Eshcol, because of the cluster that the people of Israel cut down from there. At the end of 40 days they returned from spying out the land, and they came to Moses and Aaron, and to all the congregation of the people of Israel in the wilderness of Paran, at Kadesh. They brought back word to them and to all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told them, we came to a land to which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of Negeb. The Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the hill country, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the Jordan. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it. The men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are. So they brought to the people of Israel a bad report of the land that they had spied out, saying, the land, although through which we have gone to spy it out, is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people that we saw in it are great height. And there we saw Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who came from the Nephilim, and we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them. Now, anybody remember who the Nephilim are? Nobody?
Is that the ETs?
Yeah, that's the ET people.
Are those the people that intermingled
Yeah.
in marriage?
Genesis chapter 6. In verse 1, when man began to multiply on the face of the land, and the daughters were born to them, the sons of God, or the angels, the fallen angels, saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh, his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and afterwards, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. Right? So, part of the reason, a great big part of the reason why the flood happened was because the fallen angels were trying to infiltrate mankind's bloodline. They were trying to corrupt mankind's bloodline, because God had promised that the seed of the woman was going to destroy Satan, was going to destroy the serpent. So Satan convinces his followers that if they can contaminate human DNA, there would be no seed of the woman to destroy him. So he wins. It's one of the first attacks of Satan on God's promised Messiah. So he tries to poison the bloodlines. God sends the flood. Right? That's why when you read why he chose Moses, or chose Noah, was because he was pure in his generations. Right? That's the language that is used. Moses and Noah, in other words, had no contaminated blood, and neither did his sons or his wife. So, but maybe one of the sons' wives had some contaminated blood. Maybe Satan tried to do the same thing again, because this is what the text is telling us, that when they went in to spy out the land of Canaan, right, they saw giants. That's basically what they just said. They saw giants. And of course we know the famous giant that David had to slay was Goliath. Goliath was 9 foot tall. Right? That's a pretty big man. So Satan has either had tried to do it again, or I think more likely that some contaminated blood in one or more of the wives of Noah's sons contained some of that blood, and it continued on. Anyhow, the spies see them, all except Caleb here, we're told. Actually, it's Caleb and Joshua. But Caleb says, we can do it. God has promised it to us. We're well able. He said, we're well able to take over, to conquer this land. God has promised it. Caleb is faithful. Caleb believes what God had said. Caleb reasons in his mind, God said he's going to give it to us. It doesn't matter how big the people are. It doesn't matter how well fortified their cities are. We can do it, and we should do it. But the other spies disagreed with him. Verse 14, then all the congregation raised a loud cry, and the people wept that night, and all the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The whole congregation said to them, would that we have died in the land of Egypt, or would that we have died in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? So the entire congregation of the nation of Israel grumbled against Moses and against God because of the bad report of the spies. Right? So it's not necessarily the spies' report that is the issue here. It's who the people believed. The people had a faithful witness in Caleb, and they had unfaithful witnesses in the 10 spies who did not want to go in. The people chose to believe the 10 spies, the unfaithful witness, and immediately began grumbling against God. Right? They grumbled against God and said, would that we have died in Egypt or died in this wilderness. Instead, God brought us all this way. God did all of this stuff for us. God has provided us food every morning. He has provided us water every time we're thirsty. God has defeated Pharaoh's army. God has done all of this stuff so that he can watch us die by the sword in the land of Canaan by these giants. So we see that it was a silly decision. It was a silly thought on the children of Israel. But my point is, it's another test that they had just failed. They have failed the test. God is trying to teach them faith. God is trying to show them that he requires faith in him. That's what the relationship must be based on. The relationship must be based on the faith that what God has told them is accurate and true. And that's the same thing that we must base our relationship with God on. How do we come to have a relationship with God? We believe in his Son. And not just the person of it, in what he did. And we believe in the fact that that is all sufficient. We believe that God has provided us a means by which to escape our death. And it is through his Son. So, why is the Lord, in verse 3, bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones will become prey. Why? Would it not be better for us to go back to Egypt? And they said to one another, let's choose a leader. Let us choose a leader and go back to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before the assembly of the congregation and the people of Israel. And Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes and said to all the congregation and the people of Israel, the land which we passed through to spy it out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land that flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not fear the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their protection is removed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. Then all the congregation said to stone them with stones. But the glory of the Lord appeared at the tent of meeting to all the people of Israel. And the Lord said to Moses, how long will this people despise me? How long will they not believe in me, in spite of all the signs that I have done among them? I will strike them with the pestilence and disinherit them, and I will make of you a nation greater and mightier than they. So Caleb and Joshua stand up and provide a faithful witness. They say, no, if God delights in us, in other words, God has told us this, he's chose us, he's bringing us into this land, do not fear the inhabitants of the land, do not fear anything, the Lord is with us. And the people want to stone Caleb, Joshua, Aaron, and Moses. They want a leader to go back into Egypt, go back into slavery, and they want to stone these people, and they're getting ready to stone them, and the glory of the Lord overpowers them, right? And then God, once again, offers Moses the opportunity to wipe out the nation of Israel, to wipe out the children of Israel, and begin again through Moses. He said, I will make of you, Moses, a nation greater than they are. Right? All Moses has to do is accept God's offer. And at this point in time, I would be sore pressed to say, sure, let's do it that way, because these people are getting on my nerves. Right? Every time they're faced with a trial, they don't react with faith, they react with fear, and they react with anger that you have brought them to that trial that they're facing this. But Moses, once again, acts as Jesus will act. Remember, part of what the story of Moses is modeling for us what Jesus will do on a greater and spiritual scale. What Moses does on a physical scale, Jesus does on a spiritual scale. Verse 13, but Moses said to the Lord, then the Egyptians will hear of it, for you brought up this people in your might from among them, and then they will tell the inhabitants of this land that they have heard that you, O Lord, are in the midst of this people. For you, O Lord, are seen face to face, and your cloud stands over them, and you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and in a pillar of fire by night. Now, if you kill this people as one man, then the nations who have heard your fame will say, it is because the Lord was not able to bring this people into the land that he swore to give to them, that he has killed them in the wilderness. And now please let the power of the Lord be great as you have promised, saying, the Lord is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, forgiving iniquity and transgression, but he will by no means clear the guilty, visiting in the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation. Please pardon the iniquity of this people according to the greatness of your steadfast love, just as you have forgiven this people from Egypt until now. Moses says, God, you've been forgiving them all along. Every time they've done this, you have forgiven them. And ultimately, the reason, God, that you will forgive them this time is for your glory. Right? The biggest reason why we are saved is for the glory of God. Right? To bring God glory. So that the world can see God's glory. That's our purpose. That's our purpose as a church, to point people to the glory of God. And that's what Moses is saying. God, this will bring you glory. If you bring this recalcitrant people into the promised land, if you bring these people, these disobedient people, these hard-headed people, and you will bring them in, you've been forgiving them all along from Egypt until now, please forgive them again. So Moses acts as an intercessor. And then here's the judgment. So God is going to not kill him, but he is going to judge him. Then the Lord said, I have pardoned according to your word, but truly as I live, and as all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord, none of the men who have seen my glory and my signs that I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and yet have put me to the test these 10 times, have not obeyed my voice shall see the land that I swore to give to their fathers, and none of those who despise me shall see it. But my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit and has followed me fully, I will bring into the land into which we went, and his descendants shall possess it. Now, since the Amalekites and the Canaanites dwell in the valleys, turn tomorrow and set out for the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron and said, How long shall this wicked congregation grumble against me? I have heard the grumblings of the people of Israel, where they grumble against me. Say to them, As I live, declares the Lord, what you have said in my hearing I will do to you. Your dead body shall fall in this wilderness, and all of your number listed in the census from 20 years old and upward, who have grumbled against me, not one shall come into the land where I swore that I would make you dwell, except Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun. But your little ones whom you said would become prey, I will bring in, and they shall know the land that you have rejected. But as for you, your dead bodies shall fall in this wilderness, and your children shall be shepherds in the wilderness 40 years, and shall suffer for your faithlessness, until the last of your dead bodies lies in the wilderness, according to the number of days in which you spied out the land. 40 days, a year for each day. You shall bear your iniquity 40 years, and you shall know my displeasure. I, the Lord, have spoken. Surely this will I do to all this wicked congregation who are gathered together against me in the wilderness. They shall come out to a full end, and there they shall die. And the excuse me. And the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land, who returned and made all the congregation grumble against him by bringing up a bad report about the land, the men who brought up a bad report of the land died by plague before the Lord. Of those men who went to spy out the land, only Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh remained alive. Then Moses tells the people all of these words, and notice what God is doing. The people, what was their complaint? What was their initial complaint? Here in chapter 14. Then all the congregation raised a loud cry, and all the people wept that night, and all the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The whole congregation said to them, Would that we have died in the land of Egypt, or would that we have died in this wilderness. God says, okay, you're going to die in this wilderness. Because you have grumbled, because you have disobeyed me, because you did all of these things, you're going to get what you accused, what you wanted. I'm going to give you what you wanted. You wanted to die in this wilderness instead of going into the promised land? You're going to die in this wilderness. Everybody who is 20 years of age or older is going to die in this wilderness. Not one of you will see the promised land, but your children will. Those children, you were afraid because look what else they said. Our wives and our little ones will become prey. Would it not be better for us to go back to Egypt? Right? God's going to bring us into this land and he's going to kill us by swords and our little ones are going to become prey. And God says, no, those little ones that you were so concerned about, they're the ones who's going to take the promised land. They're the ones who's going to go in and experience the greatness of the land. They're going to experience the promise. But because you grumbled, every last one of you will die in this wilderness. So, that's why God makes the children of Israel wander in the wilderness for 40 years. 1 year for each day that they spied out the land. And then during that 40 years, everyone who was 20 years old, 20 or older, perished. And then when the last one perished, except for Joshua and Caleb led the children of Israel into the promised land. Then we have the story of Joshua fought the battle of Jericho. Joshua is leading the children of Israel to cross the Jordan River, and first step is Jericho. So, that's what we got tonight. Questions, comments?
Thank you, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
So, what's our takeaway from that?
When God tells you to do something, do what he tells you to
Do
do.
what he tells you to do.
When he
And-
blesses you and takes care of you, be grateful and don't complain.
And when he leads you to these seemingly these seeming obstacles, right? Because I mean, from a human perspective, we would have spied out the land and saw a bunch of Goliaths walking around, you know, we would have been a little, whoa, you know, I really don't want to tangle with them. And back in those days, it wasn't a long range tangle. We're not going to call in an airstrike. We're going to have to stand face to face with them.
Yeah.
So, yes, but they had to overcome that and put their faith into God. Notice what God had said. He said, not one person who has seen the signs, not one person who I brought out of Egypt who saw the signs that I gave them, who saw me face to face, because the whole nation of Israel could see God, right? Not one adult who have seen me face to face and saw all of the signs and the gifts and the blessings that I have given them, not one of them will get to the promised land. They will die in this wilderness as they wanted. So when God puts an obstacle or allows an obstacle to be in front of us, we just need to trust that he is going to remove that obstacle. We just must trust that his plan is going to be completed, no matter what it looks like to us.
Yeah.
No matter what it feels like to us, it seems like to us. Because I'm maybe the world's worst. I think I can think my way out of pretty much everything, and when I can't, then I think it's impossible. But
So they had already gone through the Red Sea when they had forgotten already about the miracle.
yeah,
Um,
they went through the Red Sea 3 days after Passover, the original Passover.
So they had already experienced that and seen Pharaoh's army perish behind them.
Uh-huh.
And man, isn't that speak to the human condition, huh?
Yeah, it does,
Yeah.
right? I mean, just that very morning, right, when the congregation gathered, that very morning, God had miraculously brought them bread from heaven. They went out that morning and picked up the bread that God provided every morning, the manna.
Yeah.
They had seen God bring water from a rock. They had seen all of these. They had seen God descend on the mountainside. They had seen God do all of these things and provide for them. They had seen God bring all the plagues upon Egypt. And yet they still, when faced with fear, they still chose to trust in themselves and not trust in God.
And I had seen him parting the Red Sea and killing all of Pharaoh's army by bringing it back together right after the last one of them crossed.
Yeah, and I mean, just try to imagine what that must have been like. You're standing on one side of a sea, and Moses lifts his rod, and the waters part, and you walk across on dry land.
Yep.
You experienced it. You went through the Red Sea on dry land, and then you turn around and watch God bring the waters over Pharaoh's army, and yet don't understand that when he says go into the promised land, well, they're too big for us. Yes, it's a good land, but they're too big for us. And so it's just a failure to trust God. So
Mhm.
let's try not to do that.
Yeah.
I think our only hope is the Holy Spirit in us.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
that's the only hope I got.
Because I think our